Welcome back to Partum the Mess, a podcast about humorous, inspirational, and educational experiences presented by first-time moms trying to navigate parenthood and staying sane doing it. I'm your host, Brittany, and today we have our co-hosts Cody.
Hey.
And Jessica.
Hey.
So today we have episode 1 where we're going to catch up with you, and then we're going to discuss the topics of communication and reading. So what's going on in our lives? Who wants to start?
I can start. So recently, Emmett's I feel like he's getting close to wanting to stand by himself. Like, he's pulling himself on a lot of things, but he just will not take the leap. Like, if I try to get him to, like, come off of the couch, even if I'm holding his hands, he's like, immediately sit. There's no, oh, I'll give this a go. He's like, nah, Mom, nice try. I will stand when I want to stand. And it's super frustrating, but
he like shuts down that power struggle. Yes. Like, he doesn't even let it.
No hope. He kills off any hope. And then he started crawling up the stairs. He was crawling up the stairs, but new thing, he's just getting more and more confident. So fell down the stairs for the second time a few days ago.
That's so scary. That's so hard.
It is, yeah. Luckily, it was just so in our stairs we have like a small set of stairs and then a long set of stairs. And he has only fallen down the small set of stairs, but it's still super scary.
Everybody says babies are resilient, and even if, like, you have seen them be successful, like, my kids also can crawl up the stairs, and they've still fallen down, and I feel so bad. I feel like, what just happened?
Yeah, like, your entire face was, like, smashed into the carpet, and then, like, you probably have a carpet burn across your entire face now, but you're alive. Is that what they refer to?
Yeah, that's resilience, right? How quickly does he recover, like emotionally?
He's good. Oh, so an interesting thing that I'm sure I'll talk about again. My son, he does this thing where he'll hold his breath until he passes out. And it's so scary. And
like on purpose? Like for fun?
So,
or...
I like passing out. No, it's not controllable. It's involuntary. And he's done it since he's been pretty little. He's always been, like, an aggressive crier. Like, in the hospital, they said, oh, your baby won't have tears for the first few weeks. Day 1, he had these big alligator tears. I'm like, okay.
I wonder if he's going to be competitive as he gets older. He's like, I will show those nurses.
You say I don't have tears?
What to do.
I'll show you tears. But, yeah, he started around 3 months, I think, is when he started holding his breath. And at first, it was just a little bit. And now it's to the point where if I don't catch it early enough, so what we do to kind of prevent it is just blow in his face, but if I don't catch it early enough, he passes out, and kind of like his eyes roll back, he sometimes shakes a little bit, like a seizure almost, and then when he comes to, he's really weak. So the second time he fell down the stairs, he did that, and that's way more scary for me than him falling down the stairs. Just because I get scared that he's gonna go into a full seizure.
Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt. I just want to, for our listeners, he doesn't do this just when he falls down the stairs.
No.
Like, this isn't like Cody being negligent.
No.
This is something separate, and that happened also.
Yes. This is not correlated to him falling down this. Like, sometimes if I won't let him grab a knife, he'll do the same thing. Like,
I've seen it in my home just when he doesn't want to go down for a nap.
Yep. It's just a thing, like, I don't know. It's totally random and has no correlation to he was okay. And when he did fall, he didn't bang anything hard either. I'll clarify that because I would have taken him to the doctor had he like had head trauma.
Right.
So there was that. And I think that's everything new with me.
But that, I mean, I've never seen him have like pass out, but I know that sometimes I watch him and I just am so scared. It's like, she told me about it, and I'm like, not on my watch.
You will not pass out!
Yeah.
Just have a fan on him constantly. One of those ones you wear, like a necklace that blows into your face.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. We need to figure something out, but.
Yeah. So my newest, I guess, thing is not really about my kids, but my faithful Flo returned after 14 months. Well, 22 months, almost 22 months. And, you know, I'm grateful that I didn't have my period for 14 months after the children were born. I keep saying it like it happened while I was pregnant, but I mean, you know what I mean?
But pregnancy is kind of like a period where you're just miserable. I mean, at least that was. You're not yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, when it returned, it sort of snuck up on me. I don't know that there's really any warning normally, but I had nothing to track it by. And
well, you weren't prepared. You texted me for pads.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
It was a surprise.
Yeah, so that was not fun. I was gonna say, yeah, that was fun, but that was not fun. But fortunately, all's good. Just for all of your concern, everything's good now.
You made it through.
Yeah, I am alive. I don't know. Sheesh. So I have a friend who told me. I mean, granted, she said she timed it with her birth control, but she said she didn't have a period for 5 years because she has 3 children.
Wow.
And then in between, and that's like some witchcraft. I don't know how she avoided it.
Skills.
Yeah,
skills.
no
Ooh.
kidding. I know. I was jealous.
I'll get deep for a second and ask you a question. How do you feel emotionally getting that back? Because I was thinking about this just from my struggles with infertility and finally getting a regular cycle and finally getting pregnant. I feel like emotionally the return of your cycle is kind of like, might be a little bit sad for some people, because that means that phase of your life, that joy of pregnancy and having the newborn and everything is kind of over, and you've reached a different stage of your life. So how are you feeling about that?
That's a good question, and conflicted, I guess, or mixed reviews. I don't know, I feel bothered to bleed any day. I used to say this to my husband Phil all the time. Any day I'm not bleeding is a good day. So that's rough, but I don't know. That's a good question, because I definitely people have asked, like when my children turned 1, if I was sad, and I didn't feel sad. It was just a fact. But as I saw them progressing through clothing, because my children are still really small, they wear, even though they're 14 months, they wear 6 to 9 month clothing. And so every time they transition through a clothing size, I kind of have a mini grieve, and I'm not sure if this is really what you're okay. So that's more, the clothing, I guess, is more related to what you're saying than my period returning. However, I did feel kind of optimistic, because before I got pregnant, I had really irregular periods. It was like every 2 weeks. So a period wasn't a sign of fertility or, getting ready. I didn't know what was going on. There was just too much bleeding. And so this time when I did get it back, I was a little bit more optimistic than I might have been before, because I'm interested to see what happens now, if maybe my hormones regulated or whatnot. And so I also think, people say this, you've probably both heard this, but people say, like, you get excited to have children and you forget or whatever. I don't know. Is there like a hormone or something? I feel like people talk about it like a curse. You get on you forget. I don't know, blessing or curse. But you just forget how it felt. And I must, even though I have twins. And the only reason I mention that is because people have said to me, you must be crazy if you want to have kids already. And my husband's going to hear this because he edits this. But I don't really tell him this, that like, I'm getting more ready, like mentally. And so when I had my period, I'm like, woo, maybe my body's like interested. Even though in my head, logically, I'm like, I think I could wait maybe like 10 more months before we, so.
It depends on the day for me. There are days where Emmett's an angel. I'm like, oh, I am so ready. He's like, he's ready to be a big brother. I can do 2. And then the next day, I will be like, holy crap, push the brakes. Like, I'm barely doing 1. Yeah. Who are we kidding? I can't do 2 right now.
So Cody watches my kids as well once a week, and I'm wondering if you feel that hold the brakes thing like the day after.
No, your kids are easy. Your kids are easy. They just play that, like, honestly, you wanna see some of the like most well-behaved, self-contained, happy-go-lucky kids. Get to know Brittany's kids a little bit, because they are
thank you
so easy, except for when Buddy goes up the stairs and then gets stuck upstairs or locks himself in the bathroom.
He does that a lot. A lot.
He cries up there, but no, they're good kids.
Thank you.
It's usually like Friday night when I've had Emmett all week and Eden's tired and I'm tired. That's usually when I'm like,
Yeah.
This kid needs to be able to cook himself his own meals before
I feel like there's
just
probably
spread food on the floor. Let him fend for himself.
I've done it. I have done that.
I know. When it's time to make dinner and the kids are banging on the I know Cody, you say you don't like kids in the kitchen, and I probably should feel the same way, and as long as there's nothing like dangerous or something that they're gonna get into, I usually don't mind. But they're like banging on the oven and pulling on my legs and screaming, and I'm like, what am I? What do I look like? Get off me! So yeah, that's kind of rough. And I find that there's this correlation. If I'm angry at my children, I'm also probably angry at my husband because he's not taking the children away. So,
this is your fault.
I know. So maybe if I'm starting to, like you said, at the end of the week is when you're tired, you're tired, Eden's tired, you don't really feel like having any more children. Maybe if I'm feeling that way, I should try to like see like who am I angry with. Maybe I just need to like wait a day and decide. I mean, we're not in the market, but yeah, when we get there, before I start throwing in the towel, or what's the opposite of throwing in the towel? Grabbing the towel?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jumping the gun?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that right?
Yeah.
There we
I
go.
know. Old phrases. I don't know. But Jessica, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. This week was my husband's first week back at work after taking a very extended leave, which was awesome. We happened to have Jamie over the holiday, Christmas, so we had a lot of family come and help out, and then he was able to take several weeks off of work. So yeah, Jamie is 5 weeks now, and this was his first week back. It has been a very interesting experience. Before, when I left my job and I was still pregnant, I was bored out of my mind. Like, I was doing chores all day long. I had, the TV on. I usually have that on, like, when I'm doing chores or something. But I was like, I don't know. I mean, he better come soon because I'm dying. I'm so bored. I'm just used to having a busier life and just working full time and everything. And so that was an interesting experience before he came. And now that he's here, I'm like experiencing a little bit of that boredom, but at the same time, I can't do anything about it because I can't really put him down. I can't really do a whole. I'm learning to do a lot of things with one hand and taking 2 to 3 times longer to do them, which is a very interesting experience. But yeah, it's been a good week, I think. He does really well right now with a morning routine and a nighttime routine. We're getting into that, which I never thought that would happen because he would just eat randomly and sleep randomly, and he doesn't really cry, which is great. I mean, he does, but it's very short and not like annoying at all. So that's awesome. But yeah, he's finally getting into a cycle where he will go to bed at a certain time and then he'll wake up once in the night and then sleep again until like 7 o'clock in the morning. So we get a decent amount of sleep. And yeah, it's been an interesting transition. I don't really know what other word to use except interesting because it has been really hard, but it's also been amazing. And I think a lot of people with that, I mean, I don't know, what was your guys' experience with the first month home, like having them, I don't know what other words to use to describe it. Exhausting?
Yeah, like
wonderful.
it kind of felt for me like deer in the headlights. Like if you can, I mean, that's the only way I know how to describe what I felt like my face looked like all the time,
Overwhelming.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say you're in, at least for me. And I had a unique experience where I was still dealing with a lot of mental illness, but I just remembered that first little bit of time, it was a blur. Like, you're surviving day to day and thinking, okay, what's the very next thing I need to, how do I keep this kid alive? How do I keep myself alive? I did not feel like I was thriving. I felt like I was making it through the days. And I would have these moments of immense joy, and I would have these moments, like, everything was felt at an extreme level. I would feel joy at an extreme level, and then I'd feel loneliness at an extreme level. And I would feel anger and sadness, just everything extreme. And at the same time feel so blah.
Yes.
Like, I'm like, everything's crazy on the inside, but my life is pretty blah on the outside. When people ask me, what do you do all day? I'm like, I don't know, wipe butts.
Yeah.
Wipe my own butt and wipe my kid's butt. And
if
then
you're lucky, right?
feed
You get
them.
around to going potty yourself.
Sometimes wipe my butt while I'm feeding my kid.
Yeah. I
A lot
feel
of butts and a lot of milk, and I'm healing, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
I feel like it's a successful day when I've put on pants and made it downstairs.
Oh, absolutely.
I think one day, the first time I left my bedroom was 5:30 p.m. and I was like, this is just life now. This is life. I'm covered in puke and breast milk and poop, and it's wonderful and awful at the same time.
It's interesting to me because how many times, if you were like me as a youth, that would be a dream, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Like, be in your room all day, eat whatever
That's
you want, quote
what
unquote.
my sister does right now.
Yeah, exactly.
17,
Like,
and she never leaves her
living
room.
the dream, yet
Yep.
there's all these other variables that make it not enjoyable for us. I mean, she's alone doing that. That's maybe the most glaringly
Not taking
obvious
care of
variable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You know,
And she hasn't gone through the emotional or physical
Right.
journey that motherhood brings.
yeah. Even though she may have her own hormone things as all teenagers do, it's different. It's so different. And if I'd love to do, if we found a way to appropriately deliver the information, I would love to do an episode on that, like the hormones that we deal with as mothers that we don't even know about, and the changes that happen to our brains and things like that we just, that literally change. I mean, you may have seen this I've seen it on social media a few times, but there's different images, like a brain of like a healthy brain, and then like a brain of an individual with like this mental illness or this drug use or whatever. Like there's or trauma. That's one that I've seen. Like there's literal changes that happen, and I think I've seen one like a mother's brain after delivering,
And it's like worse than all of them.
yeah, it's like
No, is it
really
really?
no. I mean, not, it doesn't compare, but I mean, it is.
It's different.
Yeah, like there
There
are
are changes.
deficits.
Your brain
Yeah,
on drugs.
exactly.
Your brain after having a baby.
Well, the hormones are real. Like, I'm not usually a very emotional person, and even during my pregnancy, I wasn't that emotional. I mean, I'd get teary-eyed watching a TV show or something, but like, I would do that normally. It would just be a little bit more accentuated during pregnancy, but I didn't really get emotionally upset about things. I'm probably going to make a lot of people mad, but my pregnancy was very, very easy. And my childbirth experience was not that bad either. So I didn't have a lot to really like get upset about, or, and my husband and I didn't really even fight, but
That makes me mad.
Sorry. I find myself like just crying now over things that are just dumb. And my husband is just like, okay, what can I do? How can I help you? And I'm just like, there's nothing. And logically I'm thinking like, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. And yet I'm just exhausted. And I just feel like, if tears were a faucet, it's just kind of turned on high right now. And there's nothing that you can do about it in that moment. It's just like, I'm just going to cry. I'm good. Don't worry about me. But that's just what's going to happen. And that definitely comes from those hormones and just they're trying to balance me out and whatever and get me back to normal. I feel pretty good. I feel like I'm getting back to normal now. I'm 5 weeks postpartum, and I'm mostly healed, and I feel like those hormones are balancing out a bit. So feeling a little bit more myself.
That's good. We'll probably talk about this more, but there's a whole different meaning to like myself. And that was also going back to, I can't remember if we talked about this. I think it was in the introduction about why this was sort of started, meaning why I was interested in doing the podcast and delivering the information that we are, along with feeling kind of a sense of uselessness. I also didn't really feel like I had the same identity that I used to have. And I know that a lot of people will say, well, you shouldn't try to be the same person you were before. And that's fine. People can have that opinion, and I don't disagree, but it is still very difficult, at least for me. It's not so difficult to feel like I'm changing as much as feeling like I don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, it's, at least for me, it was like 24 years of building this person, growing this person with this set of needs, and really feeling like I was very secure in myself. And then entering into this new phase and feeling like lost.
Right.
And being so frustrated with how did I get lost so easy? How did I not seeing the reality that just my needs are different and that I'm in a different spot, but instead feeling angry that I'm not the same, the same type of vibrant, confident person. I'm a different type of vibrant and confident now, and I have to find that. I have to find what that is and adjust to that.
Yeah, and learning, for me anyway, to be confident in that.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
We are not that far from our teen years, and a lot of teenagers, including myself, were very self-conscious and wanted to know what was the right way to live and do so that you could be accepted or feel included in your target audience or your peer group or whatever. And though there's significant changes that happen between like 18 and any year after that, like you just hopefully grow up, you know, exponentially year after year, but it feels weird. I don't know any other word for it. Like, I'm supposed to know this stuff. I have people I have to take care of now. And Jessica, you talked about how you, and I don't know if you mentioned this before, but you take care of your sister. Well, you've mentioned your sister, you know, and that's probably similar, like this rapid growing period. Like, I'm sure there were some growing pains in there, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so as we not only learn about like who we are, it's difficult, at least for me, to not know the answers. I mean, I'm okay not knowing the answers, and we don't know the answers in this podcast. This is not an advice podcast.
We're moms. We're just moms.
We're just going to share what we, you know, have experienced and what we have found to be helpful for us, and what information, you know, the professionals or people that feel like they're professionals are saying. But it's in our own sphere. There's a lot of pressure to know the answers for our children, for our families, and that sometimes can be overwhelming, and to feel like our whole identity is now this person instead of who we are, Jessica, Cody, Brittany, you know, who is that? Okay, so our kids aren't talking yet, although Buddy and Swiss are saying they're echoing a little bit. This is really cute. Like, Swiss, a while ago, I got it on video of her repeating me say daddy, and they'll repeat sounds like, and so I try to associate, you know, like, what does a snake say? And then they don't say anything, and I say, and then they both go, it's so cute. And sometimes if I say, what does a puppy say? And I go, woof, 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 then sometimes Swiss will be like, and I think she'd do that. I don't know. Super cute. But I saw a meme on Facebook that reminded me of today's topic, and so we're going to play it for you guys now. But before I do, let me kind of explain it, and then we'll also post it on our website. But so it's text, and then it has a video, and the text says me sleeping soundly, and then my kid coming into my bedroom at 6 a.m. to ask me questions.
Have you ever had the desire to write your initials in wet cement?
Ever gone mountain biking?
What do you want to be when you grow up? What's the right tip?
Have you called a plumber to your home lately? How superstitious are you?
How much money would it take to make you spend a night in a cemetery? Would you display this as a trophy? Do you have a pet? Do you have a sweet tooth? Do you believe in the power of a curse?
Have you had your hearing tested lately?
Planning a trip soon? Can you remember the tallest man you've ever seen?
Do you love to go a-wandering beneath the clear blue sky?
Have you noticed what big stars real estate agents have become?
Are you careful with your personal records? Does your computer ever seem to have a mind of its own? Have you ever visited a Chinatown section in a major city?
Have you ever visited a flea market? Have you ever visited a truck stop? Did you ever have a job as a waiter?
Have you noticed how many successful restaurants are theme-based these days?
So, yeah, can you totally envision, like I said, like Buddy and Swiss aren't talking, but I can totally envision, like, a kid coming in, especially with, like, those rapid-fire questions, like Buddy and Swiss at the same time being like, what's the tallest man you've ever seen? Have you ever had the inclination to put your hand, or whatever, and what's meant, you know, like, those are some pretty advanced words, but there's an article that I came across that we'll link as well on the website, but it's from fatherly.com, and the title is Want to Raise a High Achieving Kid? Talk to Your Toddler Like This. And at first I thought it was going to be like the things that a lot of times we've heard, like make sure you narrate the world, which is also a good tip, but it's things that I feel like are pretty commonly voiced. But this had some new things I hadn't, ideas that I hadn't been exposed to. So the article says, for a long time, experts believed it was the sheer quantity of words children were exposed to that dictate linguistic skills and later academic achievements. In the early 1990s, a small study spawned the now infamous, quote, 30 million word gap, end quote, theory, which claimed that, compared to middle-class kids, children growing up in poor households heard 30 million fewer words by age 3. Therefore, being exposed to so many fewer words, it was theorized these kids' own vocabulary would be limited, which could hinder their performance in school. This is not the case. According to a large body of research, the kind of language a child is exposed to during the first few years of life, when vital brain structures are forming and cognitive functions are developing, influence the words they learn. So it talks about how to approach questions, perhaps questions like you just heard. So they did some studies, and you can read the full article on there. I'm only going to highlight a couple of points, and then we'll discuss it more. But they talk about the idea of mechanistic language leads to high-achieving kids and why. So in a study that's referenced in the article, it talks about how you can respond to your child. But what they use as an example is they use the question, if a child asks, how does a switch work? Which a 3-year-old could plausibly ask. The differences came down to how the parents responded. Specifically, parents in wealthier households used what researchers call mechanistic language, while parents in poorer homes did not. This type of language offers detail and explanation, which, to be honest, I don't know that I would know how to respond to that question. Like, how does a switch work? It goes up and down.
Well, I think that's an interesting point. I mean, the article is trying to make the point that higher income families tend to do this more, so they, produce higher intellect, and more intelligent children. But I don't think it necessarily has to do with income. I think those are just correlated to education.
Yes.
And so they do make that point where, if you know how it works, a lot of people will explain that to their children, even in simplified terms. But if you don't know how it works, most people are just going to take the easy out. Thinking, I think they said specifically thinking the kids don't care or won't understand. So why bother?
Why do it? Yeah, just say because.
Yeah.
Because I said so. That was something my parents used with me all growing up, because I said so. And I always hated it because in my mind, because you said so is not a good reason for me to do or not to do something. That has no consequential value to me at all. It's just what you say. Right. And so I think that's a point they're trying to make. And something I was thinking as I was reading this article is, I may not know how to explain a circuit to my child. And maybe a strategy for that is just saying, that's a good question, honey. Let's go research it. Let's go look it up. And do that together so that they understand it's okay not to know things. And it's good to go and learn. Like, learning new things is good, and adults do that, and kids do that, and it shouldn't be something you're ashamed of.
And that ties into, like, what I was saying earlier. That's a good reminder for me of, like, feeling like I have to have all the answers. Well, it's okay. It's I feel like bonding to know that your parent can be vulnerable enough not to know all the answers.
And I think that's what scares a lot of parents, not necessarily the knowledge, but specifically the because I said so. Usually parents will say that when you tell them to do something, or it's sort of like you're doing something that's strategic for your parenting method, and then the kid comes back and says, why? Well, why do I need to clean my room? Why do I need to do this? And it kind of forces you to think about the reason why. And I think it's really hard to do that. My sister would ask questions all the time when we would, put down rules or whatever. Why do you have to be home by 9? Well, I have to think about that. Why do you have to be home by 9? Because, that's just what we came up with. That's what we feel is best. But then we have to think about, okay, well, it's for safety. It's for you to get enough sleep before school the next day. And I think that kind of thinking, a lot of parents don't necessarily do that, especially when it comes to more vague issues like rules regarding morality or anything like that. Like, how do you jump into explaining why drugs are a bad thing, or, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that really intimidates a lot of people, especially when the kids are young and you feel like they don't need to know this, so I'm not going to put in that effort to think about it.
This is a heavy topic that probably we're not ready to address.
Right. But we can. And I think that's what the article really stuck out to me, was that you can talk to your kids about stuff like that. You can tell them, more serious things. I love it.
Not only can you, but it helps them. It benefits them in the long run.
Yeah.
It talks about the circular explanations. I think a lot of parents do that, and I think the because I said so is one of those circular explanations where you're not giving them any information, but you're giving them an answer to kind of shut them up.
Right.
And one example, they said, the question, why are you crying? A circular response is, parents cry sometimes, but you can also say, I'm crying because I'm sad. And that may be, and they may ask why you're sad. And then you may have to talk about why you're sad, or give them some kind of...
Because you won't clean your room.
Yeah, exactly. But, I think a lot of parents might be afraid to open that door to have to explain why they're crying or whatever. And so they just kind of say, just because. But we can be vulnerable. We can, like you're saying, Brittany, we can show our kids that we don't have all the answers or that we are upset or whatever, because that's how they're going to learn. They're going to watch that and learn how to successfully and healthily react to those life situations.
And I think just critical thinking, too. As I was reading the article, I thought, how cool is this that it teaches kids to not just look at something and take it at face value, but to think, how does this work? Why is this way? Could I understand more about this? And I want my child to be able to think critically and to try to understand things and be curious. And I think this is a great way to supplement that by rewording your answers and showing some vulnerability.
Yeah. I know that I've heard one approach could be to ask the child, what do you think? And I think that needs to be used with some discretion. I think it's a good thought if the child, I think there needs to be a balance if you've had those kind of conversations and you can display critical thinking. But if it's it can be a Band-Aid sometimes, but maybe it won't produce the same kind of result. The article says it's about quality, not quantity. Focus not just on what you're saying, but how you're saying it. Yeah. When your child asks you a question, take 2 or 3 seconds to form an explanation in your brain, like Jessica was talking about, before spitting something out. And don't say, because I said so, as that does not help the child learn or see you as a credible informant. So I feel like we touch on those things in real life situations. But we've heard, I'm sure, that reading can be a good way to increase their vocabulary as well. And I understand we just made the point it's not just about amount of words, but I think that's a really important point to continue to create opportunities for them to be exposed to different words. I bet it's the same way for Jessica and Cody. Unless they're literally narrating everything they do, they're not really going to be hearing much without another person in the room. I really like it when Phil's home, and so they can hear us having a normal conversation and hearing different words, but we still generally circle around the same topics. And so a book can introduce new vocabulary. And going back to the idea of questions, I have a book that I wanted to introduce to you, and we each are going to share a little bit about a book that we like. This book I got from somebody. It's called Giggly Wiggly Snickety Snick. So on Instagram, _, she talks about the 1 to 3 rule. For every one question you ask, try to make 3 comments, because the children are still processing what you've asked. I know that I have a tendency to ask questions to try to create thinking, and that is probably not producing the same kind of thought process that I am intending. So she's suggesting something like, what is that? A question. The child's response hopefully would be, a frog. That is a frog. It is a big green frog. Look at his big strong legs. And then another question, and then follow through. When your children aren't talking, that's going to be mostly you giving the responses. But this book, Giggly Wiggly Snickety Snick, is a good example of that process. They give far more than 3 comments after, but I'm just going to read you a portion of that. The question, what is soft? A lamb is soft, woolly soft, a pillow is soft, soft as a feather, soft as sleep. A kitten is soft, furry soft, purry soft, soft doesn't go clunk, soft is like a whisper, tell me a secret. How soft is a whisper? Oh, that's soft. A soft word is hush. So it gives some good ideas of other things that are like the word. And we've linked this book as well, so you can find that on Amazon. And then there's one more that I wanted to read. What is sharp? Points are sharp. Pencils and scissors and knives are sharp. Snap, snip, cut, clip. A sound that is sharp is snickety snick. Sharp can cut, sharp can slice. Don't play with sharp. I'll say it twice. Don't play with sharp. Don't play with sharp. So I really like that book. It was kind of an accident that we got it. And actually, I'll just tell you guys, it was at the trunk or treat.
Oh, that's funny. Huh?
Yeah, so that was a much better and much more used treat than the candy that I would have eaten my kids.
Yeah.
So do either of you want to talk about your books right now? Or do
Yeah.
you... Okay.
I'll talk about mine. So Jamie's only a month, so we're not doing a whole lot of reading to him yet. Still trying to get him to that, sleeping and eating thing. But we did read some of these books that we got when I was pregnant with him. And what we do a lot right now is singing, because that is easier when, we're trying to, feed him or soothe him or whatever. It's just more natural for us. So both my husband and I sing to him a lot. And I think that's a good alternative, especially if you're not huge readers as a family, if you like music a lot. But what I found interesting before I talk about my book was I was actually reading an article, and I can't remember which one it was, but they were talking about how you shouldn't have music playing constantly or the TV going constantly, because your kids will learn to tune it out. So I thought, for, like you were saying, you like it when Phil's home so they can hear you have a conversation. You would think that maybe a television show would have that same effect, but it really doesn't. Mentally, it's just noise and they just tune it out. And so I find that interesting, and I'm doing my best to either wear headphones when I am watching something or not watch something a whole lot when he is around, because I don't want him to get used to that and tune it out. But yeah, I was thinking, oh yeah, he'll learn, language and whatever, and playing music is good, but having music on constantly won't help him as much developmentally. This book that I have is one that I got from my baby shower, which is 100 First Words for Little Geeks. And as I mentioned previously, we are a very nerdy family, and we love all things geek. And this book, there's so much in here. Words from Doctor Who, like Fez and Exterminate, Star Trek, Star Wars, Zelda. There's so much in here. And it's just words with a picture that goes along with it. And the reason why I brought this is because I love that these words are not typical baby words. And we have an interest, a very strong interest, which he'll definitely be exposed to. There's no avoiding it. But it's just something that I saw, and I was like, we need to have this. We need to expose him to some of these words, just because there are so many words in the world. In English, there are so many words, and how many of them are we actually using? One, we're just, reading traditional baby books and whatever. And we also have the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of D&D. My husband plays D&D. And those expose a lot of words from D&D. And he is absolutely in love with those books as well. But yeah, there's just so many options for anyone, any interest, any topic, anything. And your kids will soak it up. They're sponges. They'll love it. So I hope he loves this book and loves all the things in it just like we do.
Great. Thank you.
Cool. You made me think of something while you were talking. So we have books in Emmett's room, and as I was compiling books, I made sure to get books that were not just in English. I don't know how to say all the words, but I give it my best shot. My husband speaks Portuguese and Spanish, so we have, I think, one book in Portuguese. They're harder to come by, and then some books in Spanish. And I think there are so many words in the English language, but also getting them accustomed to hearing words that maybe we don't understand, but we know are out there, so they're not, as foreign to them. Could be a good plan.
I have a book that's like that is in English and Spanish.
Oh,
so the whole book says the English line and the Spanish line, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah. But the book I chose is a book called I Love You to the Moon and Back. And this is a book I grew up reading. I don't have the same book that my parents had for me, but I bought the same version of it. And I love this book for a different reason. So I used to get super homesick, like extreme homesickness, to where, I don't know, if it were more than an hour, I would be at a friend's house or away from my parents, I would run away from school because I was homesick. And for some reason, when we started reading this book, I just felt so much security when I was doing sleepovers or staying at my sister's house. I went for the summer, and just knowing that they were watching the same moon I was watching gave me this comfort of, okay, my parents aren't gone. They're still here. They're still with me. They love me. And we read this often. I don't know if this is factually backed up, but I know for me that the repetitive nature of this book gave me security. Reading it often, and that the words were, it always starts with, I love X, Y, and Z, and the next page, I love to lift you way up high so you feel really tall. I love to share the magic of the shining skies above. Just hearing that I love so many times filled me with love. So I've always cherished this book, and I hope my son does.
I love that. Thank you both. There's another article I wanted to share that highlights the value of reading time and making it well, the title is The Most Powerful Family Ritual, The Bedtime Story. And it's by the Red Tricycle or redtry.com. We'll have that linked as well so you can see it. The author says, there's simply nothing more powerful than a bedtime story, especially in this age of continuous screen time. And then she highlights some of the benefits. She said end of day closure. So she talks about how our days go on, and that even as our kids enter grade school, they're starting to feel pressure of 24/7 world. And as you have rituals for ending your day, it can help them to unwind, let the anxieties go from that day. And she references that, she says, for our kids, bathing, teeth brushing, and pajamas start the slow down process. For us parents, it's also important that we fully shift our attention and presence to that special time, treating it as uninterrupted, sacred space, leaving our devices outside the room. And that's awesome suggestion. I think that's something that I'm going to consider, because it's really easy to kind of piecemeal bedtime. Like, oh, I read to them about 4 hours ago. Do you think that'll count? You know, and we have certain things we do, but we sometimes get wrapped up in like that's good enough. We've been like reading an article on our phone out loud. Does that count? Or like we were singing Backstreet Boys earlier. Is that okay instead of a primary song? You know, like it's sort of like a check mark or checklist mentality instead of this, like she's saying, like this sacred ritual almost. She also continues saying, feeling safe and secure, healthy sleeping and better dreaming, engaging the imagination, connecting and empathizing. And surprise, it's a male at the end. So Mike Morrison wrote this. So I apologize, Mike. I just assumed. But what I really like about this last section, connecting and empathizing, is that skill, I guess. It's really important that people know how to empathize with each other to build relationships of all types, business, professional, family and friends. You need to be able to empathize with other people and relate. And that's an awesome way to do that. I actually have a book called The Read Aloud Family, and then I believe she has a book called Read Aloud Revival. She has a podcast, but she talks about that, like gaining empathy through reading and being able to learn from other people and having things to reference. And Phil and I are not readers, so this is definitely like, I don't want to say a chore, but like something we have to put effort into.
Uncharted waters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so I appreciate it. Sometimes it's one page, to be honest, but I like it because I think that my kids have come to expect that. And the Insta page that I referenced earlier, Talk the Talk, she has it's a reading challenge that you can find. 2020 reading challenge, read with your child every day. And I don't know that she's offering anything for it, but it's just a challenge that she invites you to follow along with. So I invite you to look her up at talkthetalk_ on Instagram. And also come on our Instagram and tell her that we sent you over there, because it would be awesome if we could get her as a guest one day to talk about some of the things. She has some really great posts. So comment, tag her, tell her something that you've liked that you found on her page, and tell her that you'd love to hear her on our podcast.
One more point I wanted to make about both of these articles. There's a consistent theme, which I think is time. When we're answering questions, when we're communicating properly to our children and not taking shortcuts, when we're spending that time reading to them, it's all about time. And I think we as a society, and especially as moms or as parents, feel like we need to be doing something, we need to be busy, we need to be getting things done. And I think, at least personally for me, this experience has really slowed me down and made me think that all I did today was hold Jamie for 4 hours or whatever. And I feel, useless, like I didn't get anything done. And I just keep reminding myself I'm spending time with him. And that means something. When you're spending that time to answer their questions, they are learning and you are parenting and you are doing something valuable. And I think we just need to remind each other and remind ourselves that it's okay if you stayed in your pajamas all day and just played with your kids, because that means more for them than giving them some toys and walking away and doing dishes or doing your hair or your makeup or whatever it is. Yeah. So we shouldn't feel guilty for that. Spend time doing those valuable things.
Well put. Thank you. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Every episode, we're going to share with you at least one recipe, because we know that we all hate coming up with meal ideas. Sometimes it even makes us cry. So hopefully this can be just one fewer meal that you have to come up with. So this week's recipe is going to be given to us by Jessica.
Okay, so I have a recipe that was given to me by a friend who, when I think of inquisitive children and patient parents that always answer their questions, they come to mind, and she'll know who she is if she listens. But this is a brown sugar balsamic pork tenderloin, and you can do it in the crock pot. I've also done it in the Instant Pot, or you can do it in the oven. But we'll post the recipe, and it's super easy. The ingredients are like a pork roast or a pork tenderloin, sage, and brown sugar and balsamic vinegar. It's so easy and it's delicious, and I've made it for so many different people and they all love it. It tastes super fancy, but it is not fancy. It does not take very much time.
Do you have to know like any special skills like making glazes or anything, or is it pretty like dummy friendly?
You do have to make a glaze, but I think anybody can make a glaze because it's really just brown sugar and balsamic vinegar on the stove, heated up until it's a glaze. So it's really, really easy. I know that may be intimidating. And honestly, you could probably shortcut it and just put it all in the crock pot together. But it is really good to make up that glaze separate, because then you can kind of put it on after it's done cooking.
So there's modifications if you
Absolutely. Cooking, you can always modify cooking.
If you're an incompetent cooker like me,
Absolutely.
Is this a meal that you could make ahead of time, throw all the stuff in like a gallon bag and freeze it, and then thaw it and cook it?
Yeah, you can prep. So you can prep the pork and the sage and then freeze that. The glaze, I would not prep ahead of time, but you can do it pretty much on the spot. I mean, like I said, it's just 2 ingredients. And you can even like cook the whole thing and then freeze it and then heat it up later for a freezer meal. I usually serve it with like mashed potatoes and a vegetable of some kind. But it is, really good, very few ingredients, and cheap too, because pork is really inexpensive, and that is important to us.
Thank you for sharing that. All right, well, please make sure to catch us next week when we talk about bedtime routines. Check us out at our website, partumthemess.com, and on Instagram and Twitter at partumthemess. And if you like our content and you would like to become our patron and help support the show, go to patreon.com/partumthemess. Thank you for listening.
And pardon the mess.
We're making memories.